believe that we have a race call in House 6. Is that correct? This is in East Denver. This is Elizabeth Epps versus Sean Camacho. The Associated Press has called this race for Sean Camacho a towering 30-point win over the incumbent Democratic State Representative Elizabeth Epps. This is the seat that she won narrowly 2 years ago over centrist House staffer Katie March, and now loses it in spectacular fashion. We want to bring in a Democratic strategist here to talk about that race and a couple of others. Alvina Vasquez, thank you so much for being here. You work all over the place in Democratic politics over the years. We should say you also worked with a group that was involved in the Camacho-Epps race on behalf of Camacho. That race is now over. It's been called for Camacho. Congratulations, as I said to Barb Kirkmeyer, congratulations on that win tonight. Does the margin surprise you, a sitting incumbent losing by 30 points?
No, because, and you brought this point up, I think that personalities were definitely an issue in that race. There's circles of influence that politicians and candidates have to work, and if you don't have a good foundation for those circles of influence, then it's going to be a really uphill battle. Usually incumbents have the benefit of being an incumbent and having a record, and they have those relationships. If you don't have those relationships, it's going to be like you're starting fresh all over again.
Representative Epps was one of the most stridently anti-Israel voices in the state legislature. Now, she would say that being anti-Israel is not necessarily being anti-Jewish, but there's a very large Jewish population in that district. Do you think that that played a role?
I don't know. The number of people that are engaged in this part of the election process in party politics is so limited. I think it'd be irresponsible to make a sweeping statement like that, which is why those relationships matter so much. You know, I think when you come down to it, people care about the economy and they want to know their water's running.
When we look across the board, 11 races in the state legislature that identified where there's a more progressive candidate and more of a centrist candidate, the more centrist candidates were leading almost across the board. I think there were 2 exceptions when we looked through the 11 earlier. Let's be honest here. How much of this is about a battle of ideas? How much of it is a battle of funding? Because some of the centrist channels were very, very well funded, right? What do you take away from what we're seeing tonight?
I think it's politics is dynamic, and we should have, the Democratic Party, you're not seeing what you're seeing in the Republican Party, which you and Barb talked about. It's dynamic. You should move and shift with what voters want and voters care about. I think when you become staunch and set in your ways, you become out of touch. Continuing to be in touch with voters means continuing to see what's shifting, what's changing, and what are the top issues that people care about. And then as a candidate, because I've worked a lot of messaging with candidates, is how are you talking about the issues so they care about what you care about and that they understand that you care about what they care about.
A last question for you here. What are the issues on which you think the far left portion of your party has become disconnected from where people are? Where have they lost touch?
I agree with the stances on making your voice heard on our conflicts outside of the United States, but I do really think people care about the economy. I think folks are really worried about making ends meet, about housing, and really those money issues. It's always what it comes down to. You
hear progressives talk about that stuff, but is it because they're also talking about other international issues, things like that distracts from it? Is that what you're saying?
It could be. Okay. Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, I think so. But like I said, this is a really small portion of Colorado voters that are engaged tonight. I wish it was more engaging, but it's not. So it's coming down to relationships, endorsements. People are going to go to somebody's website, who endorsed them. I trust that organization, so I support them.
If only people knew how influential party primaries were, a lot more people would participate in them. I mean, as we see tonight, the direction of the Colorado Republican Party is shifting. The direction of the Colorado Democratic Party is shifting. Alvina Vasquez, thank you so much for your perspective. We'll be right back.